This is Glow in the Dark Radio. The science fiction podcast, with original independent science fiction, written and performed by Mike Luoma, with music by Kevin MacLeod. The Vatican Assassin Trilogy and The Adventures of Alibi Jones by Mike Luoma are available in ebook, trade paperback, and audiobook wherever you find your books online. Get links and details at glowinthedarkradio.com. This is the Science Fiction Podcast, Glow in the Dark Radio. I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma. And I've got another long chapter we're getting into, so we're going to divide it in half. That's Chapter 13 of the novel Alibi Jones, as part of the Adventures of Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus, the audiobook that we are presenting on the podcast. When we last left Alibi Jones, Kit and Piccolo, they were leaving the gruesome outpost run by the now apparently dead human Dmitri Masikov, taking off with Katie Ramsey along with them, not Piccolo's sister as it turned out, but his quarry. He's a bounty hunter for some crime lord named Lava Lure, apparently. They're headed back to Ceres Central to present Alibi's Aunt Anita, a woman with some pull in the Solar Alliance, with the evidence that the Eldred are back. We'll see how she receives it in part 1 of Chapter 13 on this episode of Glow in the Dark Radio. In book news, the print edition of The Adventures of Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus should be available any day now through Indie Planet. It looks beautiful. I'll show it to you when it's finally ready to go on sale. I've been trying to work out automatic royalty payments for the artists involved, and I think we've gotten as far as we can with that, so you should maybe see the book out this coming week, and I will let you know. If you're looking for cool gifts for the holidays that are coming up, there's my new print edition of The Ancient World Around Us, now available at Amazon, which is like 46 pages, full color. The print edition, for their own reasons, is shown sideways. I had to print it sideways because it's an 8.5 by 11 book with pictures in it that it opens from the bottom. They're kind of inflexible, so yeah. When you go on Amazon, the picture of the book is sideways. But of course, it's whatever way you want to hold the book once you get it. It is available now at Amazon. I'm looking into producing a new version that may open on the side. A slightly different thing, we'll see. There's also the new second edition of Star-Lord and the Guardians of the Galaxy, the comic book years, an unofficial comic book history. That's now out in paperback. You can pretty much get that everywhere you get paperbacks these days. It's also available as an ebook, so you can get it that way too. Of course, a lot of my stuff is out as ebooks, if you want to give those as gifts. People like tangible things, so I figured I'd talk about the new, full-color photo book there, The Ancient World Around Us, and mention this new paperback because, you can put those under the tree or hand those to people as gifts. They're tangible things. But yeah, ebooks, audiobooks. Of course, the audiobook we're featuring here on the podcast, the Adventures of Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus audiobook came out this year. So you could maybe give that as a gift. All 44 plus hours of it. So just throwing those things out there as we approach the holiday season. We're going to get into Chapter 13, Part 1 of Alibi Jones next on Glow in the Dark Radio.
Hi, I'm JC. My co-host Cindy and I host the Fix It Home Improvement Podcast. We cover projects that every homeowner should know and top-rated products for home and garden. And for fans of Mike, we keep you posted on new smart home systems and products like robot vacuums and robot lawnmowers that seemed like science fiction not too long ago. You can check it out on your favorite podcast app. It's Fix It, F-I-X-I-T, Home Improvement.
Now here's part 1 of Chapter 13 of Alibi Jones, part of the Adventures of Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus on Glow in the Dark Radio. Alibi contacts his aunt Anita from the bridge of the cruiser. "We've got the proof you wanted," he tells her. "We'll see. We'll discuss it over dinner," she says. She agrees to see him and his companions and hear their report at her apartment. Food arrives at Anita's place right after Alibi, Piccolo, Kit, and Katie do. Anita called the Ceres Central commissary after getting off the comm with them to arrange for delivery. As they feast on a full spread of meat, vegetables, and tubers, Alibi shows his aunt the pictures and the footage they took of the Eldred and Masikov. He holds off on some of the footage, saving the worst for after they finish eating. "We need to send at least a squadron of ships in," Alibi tells her after he finishes. "Can you get them to send safe ships back to the planetoid to collect evidence? Maybe have some folks from the project go through the lab and the hangar?" "Alibi, honey, you know I love you," she says, trying to figure out how to say what she feels she needs to say. "Despite what you think you've seen, I don't think we're seeing the return of the Eldred. There has to be another explanation," Anita protests. "If I was some random member of SAFE coming back to report something like this, would you believe me then?" he asks, pushing back at her. "If you were some random member of SAFE, I don't think you'd be talking to me at all," she answers matter-of-factly. "Point taken," Alibi concedes. "Not like this. But you'd get a report eventually," he presses. Anita shakes her head. "I don't know," she says. "I mean, they do sort of look like them, sort of. How did you find this planetoid again?" "We went where Dr. Krish said we'd find them based on a vision. I saw something when I touched part of what he said was an Eldred ship." "Wait, you dragged Krish into this?" "Oh, Alibi." Then the rest of what Alibi said sinks in. "Wait, you had a vision? Of what? You're kidding me, right?" "I got an impression from the metal. That's what Krish called it," he explains. "He said it reminded him of my father." The mention of BC brings the conversation to a screeching halt. Anita looks at Alibi intently for a few seconds, then looks away. He continues anyway. "We went to the place I saw in my vision, the planetoid that we just left. Krish helped us find it," Alibi tells her. "And that's where we found this guy Masikov or Ashimeth or whatever his name is. We found his lab in a huge underground hangar where the Eldred ship was kept. We found kidnapped human prisoners, and the human and Eldred victims of horrible experiments. The man was a brutal butcher." "I just saw footage," she points out. "Humans dissected like that." She grimaces at the thought. Maybe he was somehow animating the Eldred corpses? I don't know. "Maybe he was growing new ones?" she offers. "But how? And how would they stay alive without an ancient enemy around?" She asks questions to which no one has the answers. Anita is momentarily struck silent by the thought of the return of the ancient enemy. "What about the safe forces you called in? Did they see them?" Anita asks after a short silence. "I don't think they saw the Eldred. We left before the safe ships landed, but their report said they went right to the hangar where the victims were. They would have seen the Eldred ship, I guess. Can't be sure they saw any actual Eldred. They didn't include anything in the report. They evacuated those survivors we found and left immediately," Alibi says. "Guess they didn't want to antagonize the Tecta fleet that showed up." "Oh," Anita says, surprised. "The Tecta are tied up in this too?" "Somehow," Alibi tells her. "We think they're supporting Masikov." Anita shakes her head again as she struggles to process information that doesn't make sense to her. She paces across her living room, wringing her hands. "I've got to think about all this," she says finally. "Let me try to wrap my head around it all tonight. I'm going to sleep on it. They were really there, Aunt Anita, Alibi insists, pressing his case. Eldred, this guy Masakov must have found a way to bring them back. Or maybe he found some that didn't die. I know what you're saying, Alibi. I just don't see how. She trails off as Alibi calls up pictures of the Eldred from his wand and projects them over the table. She looks at the images. They look like Eldred. Kind of. They look more feral, untamed. Vicious is the word you're looking for, Alibi tells her. These Eldred don't seem to have much intelligence. They're just mean. There's just no way these are Eldred, Alibi. There's no way this Dmitri Masakov could have brought them back. Not given the file we have on him. I've been looking that over since you sent the inquiry in. Alibi looks surprised. They keep me informed, Al, especially when you go off the grid, she explains. When you call in from contested space looking for information, they tell me what you're looking for, and usually copy me on the reply. I read up on Masakov. He was far too small time to have developed anything on this scale. He has no medical background whatsoever. I don't know what he was doing with those machines, but there's no way he was the one doing the experiments. Alibi tries not to lose his temper. It's always the same thing with Aunt Anita. Always looking over my shoulder, but never believing me. She always resists. With her, I can never be right. And Becky has been trying to reach you, she tells Alibi. He tells me you've missed a couple of mediation assignments he had for you. I've been busy, he says, barely hiding his exasperation. Why? Were you talking about me? Just in passing, she says. He was asking where you were. What did you tell him? I told him you were off chasing ghosts. Great, I'll call him in the morning, Alibi says. And what about you? Kit, wasn't it? Yes, ma'am, the Dakhur purrs. You've been awfully quiet this time, Anita says, pressing him. You do not seem to be any more inclined to believe that there are living Eldred out there than you were before, despite the additional evidence presented to you, Kit points out. There did not seem to be any point to me trying to convince you. I see. And who are you two? Anita asks Piccolo and Katie. Yeah, Koi Piccolo. Katerina Ramsey. And what do you two have to do with this? It's a long story, Alibi says, breaking in and coming to their rescue before any more can be said. Both Piccolo and Katie look relieved at not having to answer the woman. I'll tell you more later, Aunt Anita. I promise. Like you said, it's a lot to wrap your head around. It's late. Can we meet again in the morning? Sure, Alibi, she agrees. Whether or not you believe me about the Eldred, we really should send a safe expedition back to that planetoid, he says. We'll see. Well, more in the morning then. The conversation is over, as Anita gets up and leaves the room. Well then, Alibi says. He sighs and gets up, letting the others know their visit is over. I guess we'll be going. He raises his voice so his aunt can hear him in the next room. I'll swing by in the morning so we can talk. Good night, Aunt Anita. Good night, Allie, she says, leaning back into the room. The four turn and leave, heading down the hall to Alibi's rooms. Allie? Katie asks, with a hint of a tease in her voice. It's what she used to call me as a little kid. Oh, that's so sweet, Piccolo says with his usual sarcasm. I don't know. She's reminding me I'm still just a kid to her, Alibi scowls. He almost walks past his apartment door. Oh, hey, here we are. Alibi has a small apartment on Ceres Central for when he visits. You can stay in the bedroom, Katie, Alibi tells the girl. Great, thanks, I guess, but she starts to protest. We'll work more on your case tomorrow, Alibi says, cutting her off with his reassurance. I promise. He turns to the other two. I'm claiming the couch out here. Kit, Piccolo, you're welcome to the floor, Alibi offers. Thanks, Piccolo says, sounding relieved to have a place to stay. I will stay at a hotel, Kit demurs. But thank you for your offer of, hospitality, the alien purrs. I will see you again tomorrow morning. Good night. He nods a small bow and leaves the apartment. Alibi goes into the bedroom and gets spare blankets and pillows for him and Piccolo. Katie follows him in. So, I can stay here tonight? She asks. Yeah, Alibi says. Piccolo will be out here where I can keep my eye on him. Plus the bedroom door locks from the inside. You'll be fine. She smiles at him. She is kind of cute. Thanks. He leaves her in the bedroom and walks back out to give Piccolo a pillow and blanket. The bedroom door clicks closed and locks behind him. You're going to leave her alone, right? Alibi challenges the man. Right, Piccolo says, not making eye contact. He tosses the blanket down on the floor. Alibi sits on the couch, but realizes he can't sleep. You know, Piccolo, I can't sleep, Alibi says. Do you want to go get something to drink? Nah, want to sleep, the man on the floor says. Alibi figures Katie will be fine, locked in the bedroom, so he leaves his rooms and heads to the public sector to find a bar and a drink. Hey, he says to the bartender, could I get a stout? His pint arrives. Alibi thinks through recent events as he sips his brew. What good does it do me having Aunt Anita's ear if she doesn't listen to me? Hey, he hears in his ear as Katie appears at his shoulder, startling him. Found you. I couldn't sleep either. I thought you were worried about Piccolo, he says to her, covering his surprise with a hint of anger. I came to find you, she says sharply, returning his ire. Thought I'd be safe with you. Maybe I was wrong, she says, a verbal slap back at Alibi. Sorry, he apologizes, feeling chagrined. Let's start again, he suggests, changing his tone. You want something to drink, he offers, trying to sound warmer. Sure. What are you drinking? Stout, want one? Sure. Alibi gets her a drink. The two of them sip their beers in silence for a few minutes, until Katie decides to talk. My dad got into some trouble with René Lavallure, she tells Alibi. Yeah, I kind of figured it was something like that, Alibi answers. There's usually a reason someone sicks a bounty hunter on you. Piccolo? Calling him a bounty hunter is a compliment, really. He's just one of Lavallure's lapdogs. One of Peterson's men, she says, hate filling her voice. He said he was my brother? Yep. Told us he was after his sister, snatched by the Tecta. Had us convinced, really. Didn't think to wonder if he was telling the truth or not, Alibi admits. Oh, she says, I guess that makes sense. Why would you? She grabs some peanuts from the bowl on the bar. How'd you hook up with the Catman? She asks past a mouthful of peanuts. Met him in a Tecta cell. Same place I met Piccolo, he tells her. The three of us had kind of similar goals, although I'm not entirely sure why Kit's still hanging with us. He said he wanted to see this through, help solve the mystery. I think he likes the excitement. So, you were trying to find that lady? The one on the table? She asks softly. Yeah, he answers even softer. Who was she? An old teacher of mine, he answers, but he gets prickly. Look, I don't really want to talk about... Sorry, she says quickly, waving her arms, stopping him. You kind of saved my life. I'm not trying to upset you. Sorry, Alibi apologizes. I've got a lot on my mind. And I'm pissed at my Aunt Anita. She's just being stubborn. So, you get it from her then, Katie jokes. Alibi chuckles, laughing at himself. I do, he says, shaking his head. I really do. He laughs. That's better, Katie says. I like hearing you laugh. You're kind of serious. Serious? Me? Alibi demurs. I haven't known you that long, but you seem kind of serious to me, she insists. Well, let's see. I was rescuing you from a maniac who was cutting people and aliens up and experimenting on them. I had to stop you from killing Piccolo. There have been reasons to be serious as you describe me, he says in his own defense. You've got a point, she says. So why are you still so serious now? He looks at her and tries to smile. I'm not. I'm having a blast, he says sarcastically. He grins an idiotic grin. Yeah, you're a wild man, she says, meeting his sarcasm. How about another round? Already? Alibi responds, looking from his half-full pint glass to her empty one. Fine. He orders 2 more pints and drains his while they're waiting. You seem pretty serious too, he says to her. Not that you don't have a right to be. Well, she says, but she stops and stares into her glass. Yeah. You don't have to. Alibi starts to let her off the hook, but she continues. My mom and dad are still there, you know, she says softly, almost too soft for Alibi to hear. They're still on Lavallure's world, on Kismet. My dad, she says, but stops again. She sips her pint before she starts again. My dad owes him a ton of money. Millions. Gambling. She stops. She shakes as a sob ripples through her. She looks up at Alibi, her eyes welling with tears. He put me up as collateral. What the fuck? Alibi blurts out, outraged. That's illegal. He can't do that. Illegal? Where? The Solar Alliance? She asks, with an ironic laugh. Kismet's not part of the Solar Alliance. That's slavery. You can't own people. Lavallure owns a lot of people, Katie breaks it to him. My dad put my mom and then himself up as collateral after me, trying to win me back. He lost. He lost it all. Now Lavallure owns him too. And I'm sure Lavallure's games are completely legit too, Alibi cracks. I bet you can really win your way out of that. Did you just say bet? Sorry, no pun intended. There's nobody big enough to challenge Lavalleur on that, Katie says dejectedly. On anything. Oh, really? Alibi says with some bravado. Slavery is illegal in the Solar Alliance. Lavalleur's claim on you is illegal in the SA. If Piccolo were to grab you, it would be illegal. Kidnapping. That's supposed to reassure me? She asks with attitude. Lavalleur's claim is legit in some eyes, she argues. Not in mine, he says, looking her straight on. Their eyes lock, briefly, before they both look away. What was that? Katie changes the subject, lifting her empty glass. More beer? Sure, Alibi agrees, although he has to gulp down most of the pint to keep up with Katie. 2 more, she shouts at the bartender. So, your father has a gambling problem, huh? Alibi says awkwardly as they wait. Katie just stares at him, glares at him, until she breaks up and giggles. What? Alibi protests. That so understates the situation. A gambling problem. Figures. I finally get a hero and he's kind of a weenie. Oh, come on, he protests. Wait a sec, you just call me your hero? Well, yeah, you did kind of save my life, she says, almost too sweetly. She laughs at him. Look at you, you're blushing. You are a weenie. Alibi stops laughing. He darkens. I don't like being laughed at. Katie sees his mood has suddenly changed and her smile drops. Sorry, I wasn't laughing at... No, I was laughing at you. You see, you are too serious. Alibi sees a funny expression cross her face, a strange look in her eyes. Suddenly she leans in and kisses him. Stunned, he kisses her back for a second, then stops and pulls back. What? I don't... Alibi tries to talk past his surprise. It's not... He can't think straight. It's probably not a good idea, he stammers. I mean, for us to, get involved, like that, he tries. Katie is clearly disappointed. She looks at Alibi, confused and angry. Yup, my hero is a weenie. She turns away sharply and downs her beer. She glares back at him sideways. I want to go back now, back to your place to sleep, by myself. Alibi deliberately misunderstands her. You shouldn't go back by yourself, he tells her. What about Piccolo? She knows two can play that game. I'm not going to sleep with him, she says playfully, maybe too loud. Well, that's a shame, Piccolo says, materializing behind the two of them at the bar, startling and creeping out both Katie and Alibi. Katie pulls away, glares back at Alibi. Her eyes shoot daggers at Piccolo. You're dead, she says, pointing at him. She turns and walks away. Kill me and another one'll take my place, kid, he shouts at her, retreating back as she storms out of the bar. What the fuck are you doing here? Thought you wanted to sleep, Alibi asks Piccolo as he waves for the bartender to settle up his tab. I got lonely, Piccolo answers flippantly. Wanted to find out what everybody was doing for fun, he tries to joke. Looking out for my kid sister. I saw you kissing her. You better drop the sister thing. It's not a good idea for you to keep reminding me how many times you've lied, Alibi says to Piccolo, simmering anger in his voice. Alibi pays the bartender and leaves on Katie's heels. He almost catches up to her as she turns and heads down the corridor to his rooms. Katie, he calls, but she doesn't hear or ignores him. Katerina! He reaches her as they both reach the door to his rooms. I don't like him showing up like that, she says. She's shaking with fear and anger. Not sure it's such a good idea to keep threatening to kill him, Alibi tells her. He reaches past her to punch the opening code into the panel next to the doorway, opening the door. You're not sure, huh? She asks him, turning around in the now open doorway, making Alibi suddenly aware of how close she is to him. You're not sure of a lot of things, are you? She teases him, leaning in a little bit closer, before darting through the doorway and across his living room. She closes the door to the bedroom and locks it behind her. That was part 1 of Chapter 13 of Alibi Jones on Glow in the Dark Radio. Well, that was interesting. Katie seems interested in Alibi. She kissed him in the bar. Piccolo saw it too. I mean, maybe she did it so he could see it. I don't know. It's one of those things. He doesn't know quite what's going on, but she says Alibi is her hero, even if he is a bit of a weenie. So we're going to have to see what develops in part 2 of Chapter 13 on our next episode of Glow in the Dark Radio. A reminder, in book news, you should see the comic book, the Chronological Omnibus of the Adventures of Alibi Jones, coming out sometime this week in print. So you can get your hands on that in print. It really is beautiful. They've done a beautiful job looking at the proof copy. Can't wait to share that with you. That'll make a nice gift, maybe. And I was also talking about some other stuff like the Ancient World Around Us photo book, like 46 pictures of cool ancient stuff around us, which is available now through Amazon in print. That just came out recently. There's also the new second edition of Star-Lord and the Guardians of the Galaxy, the comic book years, my unofficial comic book history. That's in paperback if you're looking for gifts. And if you want to give less tangible things like ebooks and audiobooks, I've got a lot of those, including the audiobook that we're covering in the podcast, on the podcast, The Adventures of Alibi Jones, Chronological Omnibus, which we are into now with Chapter 13 of the novel Alibi Jones currently. Part 1. Part 2 on the way next time around. That's all for this time. Once again, I'm your host, your writer and reader, Mike Luoma. Thank you again for listening to Glow in the Dark Radio. Glow in the Dark Radio. This podcast presentation is copyright 2023 by Michael F. Luoma and is protected under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License, CC by NCND 4.0. Music by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at incompetech.com. Mike's books are available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook, wherever you find books online. Get links and more details at glowinthedarkradio.com and mikeluoma.com. This has been a presentation of Glow in the Dark Radio.